Hey, welcome everyone to another episode. Now, when I mean I mean the second episode of Mom and Movies. Yeah. And we have this week we're going to be doing something a little different, okay? But before I do something a little different, I want to introduce my lovely and amazing co-host, my mom. Here she is. There she is. Yeah. So,
I
hey,
like
mom.
that.
It's a little dramatic, you know what I mean?
It's dramatic. It's good though.
Yeah, exactly. This week, everybody, I'm here to convince my mother to see Sinners. Okay. Now, Ma, real quick, when you first heard of Sinners, the plot, etc., why was it that you were hesitant about this film?
Frankly, I'm hesitant of most Hollywood films, and someone said to me it had something to do with vampires, and I said, ugh, vampires are everywhere. They're on TV. I'm like, Dracula, wasn't he enough? What's going on with the vampire? So that was kind of my thing. You know, high technology vampires. I didn't know what it was. And so it was not first on my list. No.
Well, for those who are tuning in right now, feel free to press that like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It is free 99 to smash that like button. And each episode of Mom and Movies, we take a film project, whether it be shorts, docs, whether it be something from the old school noir, whether it be horror, sci-fi, whatever it is that we decide to choose, we're going to talk about it and give our honest opinions. And these conversations that we have in each of these episodes is what my mom and I do all the time. Okay, so the only difference is you get to join us on our journey when we are critiquing or just sharing our points of views about these film projects. Now, by no stretch of the imagination do we think negatively about any of these filmmakers. This is just our straight up opinions, and that is it. That's all. We are actually paying homage to the hard work and the dedication of all these artists involved. And because of my mom, okay, at the end of Sinners, because of my mom and the many years of going to the movies with her, I now actually sit and watch the credits. Can you believe it, folks? Yes. At the end of Sinners, I said, Janelle, okay, we have to watch this credits. And guess what? There was something special at the end. If you didn't see it, and if you left to get the heck up out of there, well, shame on you. Shame on you. So with all that said,
let me add something real quick. One of the things that I'm super proud of in this family is that we have Rob, who is a filmmaker, of course, and then we have our beautiful Jasmine, who's Rob's daughter, who is a storyboard artist. So I just want to put a plug in for both of them, but especially her and her arts. And please contact either of us if you would have a project and you need a wonderful storyboard artist. Jasmine Silver is the person.
Yeah, she's did a great job, and she actually did the storyboard for my recent short film. So shout out to Jasmine right now. Where's my Jasmine thing right there? Hold on. Here we go. Yeah. There we go. All right. She's probably definitely not watching, but in spirit, she's here.
She'll watch it later.
Huh?
She'll watch it later.
Yeah, she'll watch it later when she's delirious. Okay, so with all that said, let's get to the matter at hand, Mom. Okay, I have a bone to pick with you, okay? Because this film to me was phenomenal on many levels. Okay, to your point, when they first before we get to the film, let's talk about the man behind the magic. Okay, Ryan Coogler. All right. Let me share the screen real quick. For those who don't know, here is the movie poster for it, featuring Michael B. Jordan. Ryan Coogler wrote and directed this project, and his approach to this is one of the reasons that really stood out, especially if you're a nerdy filmmaker, shooting it in 2 aspect ratios at once. So I believe that was the first time this has ever been done. And quite honestly, he just opened the floodgates to just doing things unconventionally. And that kind of brings me back to like, Robert Townsend to a paying homage to even John Singleton, talking about stories that nobody would really touch. And even Spike Lee, of course, and just being bold and daring. And that's what's great about Black cinema, quite honestly, in my opinion. All right. So with that said, let's go right here. Cool. Let's talk about the man behind the magic. I have to pull open in it. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Okay, here we go. I'm on IMDb Pro. If you guys don't have IMDb Pro, well, you don't have to get it, but I got it. But it gives you tons of access to more cool information behind the films itself, who's involved, who the movers and shakers in the biz. Okay, so let me refresh this.
Can you make the screen bigger, please?
I most certainly.
Thank you.
How's that?
That's good. That's
all right.
good.
That's the full screen right there. For anybody who has any questions, comments, or just want to have their opinion about what we're talking about, feel free to post them down in the live chat. All right. All right. So right here's Ryan Coogler, as we all know him, getting that huge big break from Fruitvale Station back in 2013. Right. So shout out to him. And ever since then, he's pretty much been on a blockbuster hit making spree, with Creed, Black Panther, right? Shout out to Black Panther. Had people going in there looking like Wakanda to go see some movies with a popcorn in their hand, and then Wakanda Forever and all this other stuff. I felt some kind of way about Wakanda Forever for a little bit, but Black Panther was freaking amazing to me. Anywho, let's see what other credits he's got here. Wait, excuse me. Does it show all the films? How the heck do I get to the films part? Oh, there we go. Ironheart, Eyes of Wakanda. Oh, these are TV miniseries. Okay. Look at all this other stuff I didn't even know. Anthem, Creed 3, Stephen Curry underrated, blah, blah, blah. A whole lot of list of stuff that is just coming out the woodworks. I love to see how busy he's been. Goodness gracious. Freaking hit spray. Anywho, God bless him. With that said, quite honestly, I don't know too many Black film directors right now that are making that much noise on a consistent basis. What I say, you, Mom, what do you think?
I don't, just off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody else. He's certainly been very busy, very happy for him for that. He's been working with big studios, so
totally. Oh no, go for it. I'm sorry.
No, I just said blessings to him. His work, but Fruitvale Station broke my heart. I lived through that time, and what happened to him, what happened to this poor young man. And it was everybody in the theater was in tears because we're all here in Oakland, and everybody knew what was going to happen. But then watching it was just so powerful.
Yeah, I when I thought of Fruitvale Station, I thought it was the right story at the right time, and it was pretty much a perfect storm. Right, that was, what did he say, 2013? That was like right after Occupy and all that stuff was happening. So people's conscious, like a lot of stuff was going on in terms of conversation, and this became part of it, right? In terms of,
for sure, it was a particular heartbreak because it happened on New Year's Eve, right?
Oh yes,
it happened on New Year's Eve. So every New Year's Eve, I always remember what happened in Fruitvale Station, and then the heartbreak of that movie for me was to hear that it was his mother who didn't want him to drive, told him to take the BART. I was like, oh poor woman.
Yeah, that must have been painful for her for sure.
For
and
sure.
How did you feel when you watched that? How did you feel Ryan Coogler captured that moment in history?
I mean, just the fact that he added in those emotional points, and the film could reach everybody. It could reach anybody. And it had that extra sting because almost everybody, if you were watching Channel 2 News here in the Bay Area, everybody saw the film of the police, the BART policeman and his horrible behavior. It was on film then, and then to see it again, that was a. It didn't make it real because it was real, but it made it more in your soul. It went more in your heart.
Yeah.
And to think that he wouldn't even have been there if he had not listened to his mother, he'd have been somewhere else with his lady friend. So
It's amazing. Like one moment in time can change everything, right? Like one action,
and
one
this is
small
and it's
action.
her trying to be a good mom, her being a good mom, wanting to keep him safe, and the struggle of a black mother is always trying to keep your son safe. As soon as they're born, you have to be work. That's like your major job is to try to keep them safe. It was
Well,
so hard.
when you saw that film, did you feel not only did this was the story well told, you know,
Mhm.
because sometimes Hollywood can butcher it, take things out,
Yeah.
replace, you know, hollify it, right? I guess Hollywoodify it,
Hollywood.
make it more palatable, right? Um, how did you feel walking away from it, knowing and being close to that situation since we live in the same city?
Well, that was his first film, right? It wasn't Hollywoodicious yet. It still felt like what it was, which was a small film. And
Mm,
it was shot on the streets of Oakland. It had places that you could know and you could see, like if you lived here, that meant something. And it
yeah,
was, in front of Fruitvale Station and in Fruitvale Station, where I've been a million times. So he hadn't gotten to that point where he had all the special effects and silliness. He just told the story, which I
mm,
wish a lot more filmmakers would do. Worried about special effects and other things, and the story gets lost sometimes. Um, so no, it was very clean, and it was a punch in the heart, and it was supposed to be, because
totally.
what happened to that young man was egregious, it was horrible.
Wow. With that said, Ma, no, let's get to the meat and potatoes, okay? Because that was pretty
Yeah.
heavy. All right. So, again, we're here to talk about sinners. All right.
Yes, we are.
When this film first was announced and I saw the trailer, I was like, wow, this is gonna be awesome. Because first of all, Ryan Coogler, Michael B. Jordan getting back together again. I'm like, this has got to have it's got gravitas already written all over it. And this is years after Fruitvale Station. They've both been extremely successful in their own rights solo, and then for them to come back together, it's like Batman and Robin. You know what I mean? Now,
Mhm.
with that said, um, here's the thing I want to talk about right here. Okay, let's talk about. I want to share with you exploring the theme and impact of this film itself. Okay, um, even though it was pretty obvious, you know, vampire horror. I thought the film had way much more depth than the vampire and horror. I thought the
Mhm.
vampire and horror was, and I want to talk about that later. Something interesting that he explored that route to tell something more deep, something more visceral, a visceral connection between um, us all. One is he told about that connection was through music and specifically American music and where it came from and how dirty and how can I say raw the music is, and thus our experience and how we're integrated together because of uh, uh, how our American experience is so integrated and expressed through our music. So you had the poor Irish music of the South, and they were poor too. I know white folks think they were always
Look,
no. They were the black white people back then, right?
correct.
And they were the no Irish need apply before the Italians and everybody else. So you had the poor Irish and Scottish folk, and then you had the poor blacks, and then you could hear the influences of modern music being influenced by those two very segmented groups at that time. You had the fiddling, and then they had the rain dance. What does he call it? River dance, and then also it turned into tap dance for Black Americans who were, whatever, from slavery, etc. So it's like you can see this huge integration of these two polar differences being melded together and finding commonality through music. So I thought it was so to me, I saw so much more than vampires. I thought that vampires was just, an action way to get you hooked or sitting in the seat if you were younger, but it was so much deeper because wow, the music itself was a character. The music itself. I'm so sorry.
I said for sure, yes. The music for sure is a character in this film.
And what I loved so much was as much as homage to American Black ancestral sounds and music was nodded to or honored, so was the poor Irish and Scottish folks with their acapellic singing. Yeah, with the chant, it was just as much as of a chant, a rhythmic chant, as the African, and that's where if you closed your eyes, it was just soulful all around. When there was a scene, Mom, where the vampires are trying to seduce somebody, but then they started singing. Music was the power, was the force, like gravity. It was a controlling force, whether it be for positive or negative. If you looked at it as vampires, I saw critics that were like, "Oh, the vampires are the white racists," and they said, "No. They just used the bodies. They just happened to be white. It was the music that was the driving force and what attracted them, and also what helped to repel them." So it was music. It was literally a character. It should be on IMDb.
It's very interesting because I'm forgetting the name of the gentleman who does a lot of work on racism and diversity, and he was talking about how the construct of being white is something that people had to become. Irish people were not considered white people. Italian people were not considered white people. So WASPs were the only white people. And then as people came over into this country and as they followed the rules, which meant hating Black people,
you became white.
If they followed the rules, then they could get to be white. And if they made enough money, blah, blah, blah. And so it's very interesting to see in this time frame, the Irish who were not considered white, even though they're vampires, they're coming after a bunch of Black people. And they're coming after a bunch of Black people in a very interesting way too, like in trying to join with them, like come be with us and leave her. But the Black people could never join with them. Like, this is a little beyond the movie, but really even a Black person becoming a vampire just is a vampire in the South at this time. They can't join each other, right? In their vampire minds, it's like, come to the magical place that we live. And Irish ancestry, of which we have Irish ancestors. Fairies and dreams and visions is part of Irishness. It's the good part of Irishness. And talking to our ancestors and speaking to spirits is part of our Black ancestry as well. So it's interesting to see the combination of those things. But even if a Black person became a vampire, if they bit a Black person and that person became a vampire, they would only be welcomed by the other vampires. They still, in the greater world, are you still Black. You can't change that.
Yeah, I see that part 100% from the exterior. This is what people saw. I like that the vampires didn't even see black and white. They just saw power. They said, "Oh, you create this music. That music is powerful, gives us life,
right?
Now, and in exchange, we'll give you life eternally." right? There wasn't this black and white. There was never such a discussion. It just happens to be manifested through white people, right? But because remember, the first two he bit were two like KKK members or whatever, right? There was two KKK members, but and he bit them, and he's like, "Oh, I need some help," and he ended up getting them, and they just happened to be part of it. But yet, when they were bitten, they had nothing about racism. It was all about, just join us. Your life will be better. And in exchange, we want that music you have, right? That soul, that whatever it is. And so that's why I'm like, music becomes a character. Now, hold on, we actually have comments. Can you believe it? Hold on, let me get these comments. Okay, Mom, real quick. All right, so we have we got a lot from somebody. Here's Knox. He says, right. Awesome. Thank you very much. And he says, it felt like a reminder. Absolutely. And he says, absolutely, because I'm guessing he kept on listening to us. It was, but it wasn't. Yeah, I know what you mean. It was, but it wasn't, right? But I think if we're thinking more I think if we think with more depth, the racism part really had no role, especially with the music playing such a strong forefront. The music was great. When the Irish people started playing it, I'm not gonna lie, they had soul. Okay, so it was just their version of their soul. We have tap dance, they got the river dance. You could see the influence of both. Blues, they had their Irish folk music. It's blues nonetheless. It was, but it wasn't. So, and I think that's the beautiful thing about it was that it wasn't so stark. It wasn't black and white. It was great. Like the music was, I was shocked on. I got goosebumps when they started singing that old folk song. It's will you go? Oh, will you go, lassie, go? Which is I looked it up, an old Irish Scottish folk song written in like the 1700s to the 1800s. That's when the poet was alive, and I looked it up and found it on Spotify, and I was like, damn, that song's got it's got soul. And I think that's part of the power the vampires are seeking was just good old soul music, like
the purity of it. It's very tiresome to look at music styles and trends that come from Black people or come from Africa that then get ripped off. That music's not ripped off. That's Irish music. That's from their beautiful culture. And that makes it pure. That makes it good.
We have here from BT Annie Wunmi Masuku. Actual full name is Omo Wunmi, which means
Wunmi Masaku.
Oh, okay. I clearly butchered that. The desire for a child to reunite with one's child, hoping to reconnect with one's child. Awesome. That's what's up.
No, that reminds me of Beloved. If anyone read Toni Morrison's Beloved and her killing her child, being a Black mother who kills her child because she doesn't want her child to grow up a slave, grow up a Black person in this country at the time, was even worse than now. That's a driving force right there, the desire to have a child. And then when you have the other mother was concerned, the Asian mother was very concerned for her daughter who was home alone, and the vampires talked about going to get her. So
that was real interesting because I try to look for subliminal messaging when I'm watching films. I try to be as analytical creatively and ask, why did they do X as a filmmaker, right? As a storyteller. And the addition of the Asian experience at that time period and making sure they play a particular role was actually really cool. Stereotypically, you just see America through the two lenses, black and white, right? And I get it. That's just the way it is. Okay. Don't hate the messenger. I didn't write the history books. It's just plainly written as America, black or white. Those are your two experiences. Which one do you want to jump on? Now, but these characters, the wife was extremely smart, strong. She was in control of that marriage. That was clear as day. And she was not she didn't play a weak role. Right. and I like the friendship between the brothers, right? Stack and Smoke, and Bo, which was the husband. And you saw how, hey, we're all minority. We had to work together. We have to work together because we're kind of out here on this dirt path, together. And it was, see, again, going back to the unification. And he's like, hey, I'm with helping you with this juke joint thing. As long as we could win. Okay, when they came up, it was like this, we working together for a common goal. And I'm glad that there was a point where, again, going back to the music, where there was a big dance, the opening night of this club. And they had, quote unquote, traditional Chinese or, dancers mixed in, as well as the Irish. I mean, the music was half the story. If you didn't get the music impact, I think you missed half the reason why this film was awesome. That's just me.
I agree with you. The music was fabulous, and having the central characters be people of color. And I'm even going to include the Irish on that, because at that time they weren't considered white. There were some places where they couldn't go and they couldn't be. So I'm going to throw them in the bucket for right now. But that's a very unusual thing for American film, to have all these supposed, people of color, people who are not privileged, really.
And on the same playing field. Think about it. There was none of them were better than the other economically. They were all poor Irish, poor Black, and poor Asians, just out here, downright trying to figure it out, hustling their way.
People of color. Well, yeah, exactly what you're saying. And also, I'm so horrible with names, so please forgive me. But the mama who was yearning to have a baby, her being a woman of size, and she's a main character.
Yes, that's a very good point.
Powerful. Here she was a little skinny thing. No insult to folks who are skinny. I love you all. But in an American movie, to see that is very rare.
Yes, I'm trying to find her right now. I think it's right here. I think this is her right here. Let me see if she right. She looks. No, I don't think that was her. Dang it, I can't remember the name of that character. But yeah, she was awesome. That brought a lot of heart to the pain behind one of the twins, right? Was understanding his loss, a loss that we all could get. And you know what I liked about that character you just mentioned, Mom, was that she was not a stereotypical A-list size 1 or 2. She was truly a beautiful woman in character. She glue on the film, like her what do you call it? Her melanin just glue. But she looked like a woman you would know. She looked like someone you would know.
Woman who lived down the street.
And then you have one of the lead role guys, handsome, whatever, and they had this passion, this visceral love, a love-hate almost, because of the pain they both share, right? And I thought that was so great, having a woman, what do you call it, a love interest that looked like somebody we would all may know, right? If it was Halle Berry, I wouldn't have felt it as much. It would have been fake.
Yeah, I feel I need to say that I did break down today and watch this movie.
Wait,
because I'm going to say
hold on. No, that's the wrong button, Mom. I have to press this button for you. Okay,
my darling.
I can't believe you did that. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, well, it's on Amazon Prime, so if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it. And it's on YouTube, and that was just it, because I just really felt. But the scene where they are, everybody was in this movie, really. We're talking about the woman that we're speaking of. She was like the good witch. She was the one who knew what was even happening, to be able to tell everybody else. I know about these creatures, and then I know about vampires. They would not have known, because in their world, living in you know, the United States of America during that time, we're going to go back and pick on the church, even though I'm a Christian and I do love the church. But church says, oh, that's all evil. We're talking about sinning. So all that stuff's evil. So folks were not informed about this stuff. So she was the one person, this beautiful, very beautiful woman of color, woman of size. She had all the info to even give them an opportunity to do battle against this evil.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she held the secrets, the spells.
She had
Ma, real quick, we got
spells.
some comments. Got to get some comments in here.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you, Knox, for
Yeah.
continuing to support this channel and bless us with these comments. I hope you smash that like. I hope everybody else does. Right now, if you smash that like, I'm offering smashes and subscriptions to our channel. That's right, subscribing for, guess what? Free 99. That's right. It costs nothing to subscribe to this channel. And smash that bell.
It's similar to Beloved. That's one of my favorite books. That and The Bluest Eye. The Bluest Eye broke my heart. Such a good book.
He also says more concerned for his daughter than the safety of everyone else. Oh, that's right. Yes. They were getting the money from the hood. Their store was where the plantation money worked. Oh, that's right. Yeah, they brought up. Yeah, that's circulation right there. Economic circulation. Yeah, there was so much symbolism in this film that made me think why it was really good. And when people got stuck on the surface level stuff, I was just, I can't have time for this. I don't. Have you listened to the soundtrack? Is great. You listen to the soundtrack, Ma?
Well, as I watched the movie, yes.
Oh, it's on Spotify. You can listen to it on Spotify.
Oh, that's really cool. Okay.
And I listened to that Irish one. I listened to the black stuff. I was like, the visceral. There's really no difference except the origin, but the soul and the spiritual aspect of certain of these songs and how they was displayed. There wasn't a difference. It was just a different expression and a different experience that they came from. But we all have felt sad before. We've all felt happy. We've all suffered loss, and that's just human experiences. And I think that's why it was so great to have music being the driving force for good and for evil. Right? Good was when the lead character, hold on, here we go. When Miles Cotton, who played Sammy, for good was what was going to help him get out of the hood. Was going to help him get that money. Yeah, right? He didn't want to be a preacher's son anymore. So, but for evil was obviously the vampires use it to seduce you and then bite you and, have their way with you. So it's that good and bad. And we're still facing that today with music, right? Hip hop has a great force of good and unfortunately has a great force of evil right with it. So, we're kind of acting it out, living it out now.
They did a great job of showing that. There was a scene that really stuck in my mind that I was like fascinated by how they kind of went through all the musical styles and they went through R&B and they went through
and the dancing,
when they were all dancing in the club. And I was like, okay, that's a piece of genius right there. That's a piece of genius right there.
I couldn't agree more. You're right. That's when I saw that. And every time the music changed, the people and the dance changed. It was very euphoric and a bit hypnotic. I loved it.
Yeah,
it was cool.
Yeah.
We have a question for you, Ma. Can you believe that? Look at that. We getting questions for you and everything. First is they were getting the money. Oh, okay, we got that one. Thank you, Knox. BT says, question for Mom. Did you notice the baby crib in the room when Rimlick killed in the room? That's right. Yeah.
Yes, I did. It definitely brought up a lot of tears. I mean, I think that's the thing about this movie. I mean, if you haven't seen it, it's hella violent. It's quiet for a long time, and then it gets hella violent. And that's the thing that my son knows, that I'm not a big fan of that. But I can see things like, that's right, that's what I feel. One tear coming down. That's how I feel. But if it is intrinsic to what is being told in the story, like I love Stephen King because he's a great writer. So I can see a Stephen King movie and I know anything violent that happens in that has a backstory and a history. There's so much going on. His writing is very deep. Um, and there are maybe two other horror movie writers that I enjoy them because of their craft,
Mm.
you know. And I ended up enjoying this movie. There were definitely scenes where I had to. It's to cover Rob's eyes when he was a little boy, and I was covering my own eyes. But it was so part of the story. It wasn't just violence being done for violence sake.
Mm.
And there was a good chunk of sex going on, which I'm sure was part of having a juke joint's life in the reality. Like they weren't at the opera having sex in the cloakroom; they were at the juke joint. So that really helped, and they didn't belabor it. It was quick and fast, and on to the next thing, which was good. Good writing helps that stuff to be tolerable. Um, do I enjoy those parts? No, but that they're part of the whole film. So it was
Yeah.
done.
I like that. I kind of wish there was a little bit more of the Native Americans, but
Yeah, me
I
too.
did like them at the beginning. They're like, we're actually here to help you if you just listen to us. And their arrogance, we don't believe it, get up off our land kind of attitude. And then they got what they just deserve. And they were actually there to help you. Like, we know how to battle this. Actually,
Right.
there was a part two. They were literally, we know how to fight this. We got to do
Right.
it now to save you. And I felt that if you, even though it was short amount of time they were on screen, they were actually telling you that they have the key. They got the yeah, we've been dealing with this, right? So shout out to our Native brothers and sisters out there. That was I like that they included them as well. I felt like everybody was included in this film, and there wasn't like a good or bad per se. You had the vampires versus living creatures, right? And the vampires.
The white gentleman at the end that got so many bullets in him, he was probably Swiss cheese when it was done with him. He was clearly a bad person.
Oh yeah.
He was clearly
ironically, he wasn't the vampire. Think about that. Ironically, he was not a vampire.
Exactly.
So the vampires never said anything about race. They just happened to have bit you. I mean, during the juke party thing, they were biting black people. They're biting anything they could get a hold of. And then and what they in exchange was promising bliss, forever life and all this other jazz, right? So it wasn't like they were saying, hey, we just want to kill you.
Yeah, but their bliss is being the living dead. That's not, what is it?
Granted, but they weren't saying they weren't using their evil for racism's sake, right? There was none of that.
They wanted everybody to be a vampire because they thought being a vampire is the best and highest thing. They happened to be so wrong, but that's what they thought. So taking people out of their lives.
So Knox says, "Mom's right about Annie."
Knox is my friend. Thank you, sir.
And then it says, the soundtrack is nice. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it is nice. It really is. Peter Mann. Thank you, Peter Mann, for showing up. I don't understand why some Christians hate this movie.
I want to talk about that actually as being a Christian. It's so interesting. One of the things, I think it was last week or so, I was watching one of my favorite YouTubers who happens to be a Catholic priest, and I'm Catholic. And he went to see this movie, and he was like,
shut that door if you can. I hear Dave or somebody.
I'll just tell him to be quiet. Anyway.
Okay, go ahead,
The
Mom.
gentleman was a Catholic priest, and he was saying, well, he felt this was the most unchristian movie he had ever seen, one of the most unchristian movies he had ever seen, but that he enjoyed it a great deal.
Wow.
Which I thought was
hilarious.
wonderful of his open-mindedness and his being solid with his Christianity. And it's right. I mean, as far as the rules and regs of being a Christian, there was hardly none of that there. It wasn't about that. The movie wasn't about that. So move on, press a button and move on. But he could
Good
see
point.
all the things we're talking about this whole time. The music and the acting and the cinematography, everything was great. It's a great film. So some Christians, in my opinion, don't have the ability to see that ratio aspect. It's either good or it's bad. It's either up or it's down. It's called being fundamentalist. So if
Mm,
you're a fundamentalist of any faith, you would not like a movie like this, right? And if you just think that anything to do with demonic anything or vampires or anything is evil and bad, you're not going to like this movie. So, you probably will not. Hopefully, you could give it a shot. I do think it was a good movie. It's not preaching anything to anybody.
I like that. I
I
like
like
that.
it. It was not preaching, but the father was trying to get his son to come to church, and he had a sweet little community church. And again, that's a parent trying to keep their child safe based on what they
Totally.
know.
Yeah.
He
Oh, go. I agree with you there that the father wasn't a hard ass just to be a hard ass or to be like, you know, do as I say, etc. It was really out of protection. And
he wanted to see some proof.
at the end, or at the beginning too, his father didn't say, I told you so. He welcomed them back in, but he was like, I tried telling you. And then him going back to his father was him saying basically, you're right, Dad. You had my best interest without having to say it. And
Yeah.
I thought that was great. And
And
sometimes
again,
of a
it's so
father,
hard. During the time that they lived, where there was Klansmen running around and doing stuff,
yeah,
trying to be a parent, keeping your child safe was that that's why they clung to Jesus so hard as they clung to Jesus. Like you want
yeah.
your family and your loved ones to stay safe. Can't blame
All
them
right.
for that.
We got some comments here.
Go ahead.
It says, Knox says, I thought the title was brilliant. I did too. The more you talk about the right and wrong in many of parts of the scenes, yes, it was pretty brilliant to call it sinners, right?
For 1 minute.
Because we all are, that's for sure. Oh, okay, Ma. There you go. Are you leaving us?
I am closing the door.
Okay. Heaven's sakes. Well, there is my mom right there. She's closing the door so I don't have to keep hearing other family members talk in the background because I hear it all in my headphones, which means you guys probably hear it too.
Talking
He-
loud.
Peter Mann says, Sinners is a wonderful painting of the conundrum choosing between faith and belief. 12 to 10. We sure need a prequel. Yes, I think it was a 12 out of 10, 100%. I want to know about Remick, backstory, Perline's marriage, right? And Twins' time in Chicago. Yes, I would love to hear those. And I also was curious because at the end, where I'm not sure if it was Stacks or shoot, which one of them was it? I think it was not just Remick, because that was such an interesting character. Smoke, I think it was Smoke that died. Which one was it, Stack or Smoke? I can't remember. But when he came and visited Sammy when he was older, he was an old man. At first, when he came and visited him in the club, I was like, oh my God, he's gonna finally take him. But he's like, actually, I've been watching over you because I gave my brother a promise to never hurt you. And he was like 1993 version of himself with the same girl that he loved or whatever, right? And then and they were still off being vampires. I'm curious as to the future of what they, how many more vampires did they go ahead and create or build or whatever the hell. So yeah, the prequel. Yeah, it was very fascinating.
I
Peter,
love watching. Let me just say real quick that the deal with the mixed race young lady who ended up being the girlfriend of the vampire.
Yeah, there was a lot.
Also putting in the struggle of her trying to live out her blackness, even though she's very fair skinned, and so they partially had to be afraid of her having her in their juke joint. Because if someone noticed and said, "Oh, a white girl's in this juke joint," that would have been everybody would have been hanging on the tree the
Mm.
next day. So it's her pain and her loneliness really, really reached me.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions about that. I thought the
Mhm.
character was pretty symbolic because guess what? There was a lot of biracial situations happening. I get
Yeah.
it. We are all products somewhere, whether it be yourself or someone in your family. I get that. Hey, what? Thank you, Peter, man.
Hi
Appreciate it.
there.
All the way from Israel. Shout out to
Love to
Israeli
Israel.
brothers out there and sisters and everybody else. Okay, it's all love here. We're talking movies, not politics. All right, so we welcome everyone here on Mama Movies Podcast. Anyway, so with that said, thank you for watching us. Really appreciate it. And one more thing before I say what I gotta say. And then BT says they are clearly baby Christians. A good pastor can preach a 10-part series sermon on sinners. Yeah, I think it's a deep film. It really is.
We didn't talk about it forever.
So now back to that character. Let's talk about this character real quick. Let me go to
Mhm.
here and let's go on over to who we're talking about. We are talking about, where is she? Jeez. No, that's the white. Is that her right there? I think that's her right there. Okay, Mary. Okay.
Holly.
Holly. That's her name right there, right?
Holly, yeah.
Yeah.
Haley.
So here she
Beautiful
looks.
girl.
Oh
Is she
well.
is she a mixed race girl?
Well, that's what I'm trying to find out here, quite honestly. Okay.
Because
And
she was so lovely.
oh, born in Los Angeles. I'm not sure if you can see this. Can you see what I'm looking at?
Yeah.
I'm gonna assume she is. Okay.
Well, Steinfeld could be a lot of things. Steinfeld could be German or Jewish.
Yeah, yeah. Shout out to half black, half Jew folks out there. Shout out to
Yeah,
you. Uh
that's the family.
and then well, I like that she played that. I like the character. I do like the
Yeah.
character, and I like that she understood her privilege, right? She understood
Mhm.
that, hey, I can go to certain rooms, you can't. But she was like, but my first loyalty lies at home, right? With her people, if you will. She didn't
Yeah.
mince words about her origin and stuff like that. And she even though she may display very fair, and that's what helped her, but she used it to her advantage when it came to help benefiting her people, right? Going out to talk to the white folks and stuff like that. And he's like, hey, how did you get in here though? She's like, trust me, you don't want to know. But either way, I like the character.
I like the
Wish she
character a
was,
lot.
personally, I wish she was a little darker, but that's just me, just a smidge, that's just me. But I get it,
Yeah.
Creole, French
I
Creole, I
I
get it.
love her, and we don't know how she got to be with us. We don't know if she was a product of a rape. We don't know all the
Mm,
story behind her. But she definitely carried a good chunk of sadness and a good desire of wanting to be who she is, and for everybody. She was a tough girl. She was not anybody's pushover at all, and she actually reminded me a great deal of my grandfather, who was a very, very fair skinned black man. Who
what's his name? Won't you say it, Ma?
that's the grandpa that you are named for.
Well, why don't you keep saying
Grandma,
the rest, Ma?
your
I don't
grandmother,
know.
your grandmother's father, Robert, was a incredibly proud black man. But if you just looked at him, he appeared white, and he could have passed, but he refused to pass.
Mm.
And he married grandma because he said he wanted to marry the brownest woman he could find, and she was his heart. So
Oh, this is
let's
grandma.
put our hands up and respect to the ancestors on that, on their beautiful love story.
Yeah, grandma would tell me little things about him and stuff like that.
Oh,
And
we loved him so
he
much.
was a Garveyite and all that good stuff. And
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah, Marcus Garvey.
So no, I wanted people to just get, give context. That's why I asked for a little background. But
Yeah.
I oh, as you were saying and mentioning about her strength and so forth, I noticed that as a common theme with all the female
Of course.
characters. the Asian wife, you know, who was
The
played.
women were great. The
Yeah,
women
the
were
women were great. And hold on, let me get to, I want to make sure I say her name. Lee Jun Lee, who
yeah,
played Grace Chow. She was freaking
gorgeous,
awesome. She held the fort
gorgeous,
down.
gorgeous. Yes.
And all the other women were just absolutely amazing. And
Well,
here's the
they
thing.
didn't have the privilege of being pretty and stupid. White women can be pretty and stupid. These are women of color. They have to survive. If that means I have to knock you out, I'm gonna knock you out. So you know what I
They
mean?
all were
So,
working together. Think about
yeah.
that. They were working together too.
Hmm.
There was no hierarchy kind of a situation. Everyone played a role.
Absolutely.
Mrs. Chow, she was in charge of the bar and the food and the catering, and one was in charge of this. And like everyone was playing, all these women were playing together to see the brothers' vision of this juke spot, which is about a place of unification, dance and release.
They put that
Right?
juice up.
Beautiful.
They put that up pretty quick. I was like, wow, that's amazing. Oh, they're already ready.
They
Just
only
a
got
couple
90 minutes
days.
for Future Ma, okay? No. They got to get right to the jukebox. No.
Like, yeah, they don't have time to fiddle faddle around.
That's right. You got to tell the story. No, but it was pretty amazing. But to your point, you're saying how fast they came together. They all had to work together to make it happen. Because wasn't it like tomorrow night or tonight that they were
Yeah. He's handing out flyers and then he's having a party right at the same time almost.
tonight, 10 o'clock?
Yeah.
How are we
But
gonna do it? I don't
how
know.
people got things done. I mean, that's how people got things done.
Totally.
It's very frustrating to me how people have to talk about things, 5,000 meetings before we do one thing, you know. So people who are trying to make a living or people who have a shared intention can work together and get something really done. And done. The place was beautiful. It was a great. I'd go downstairs. It was a nice place.
Peter, look at that. Peter says, I was angry when she shouted, come on in. She allowed them in. Oh, that's a good point. That's a real good point. A Remick emotionally manipulated her using her daughter. Well, that's why he was that vampire. No, that's a very good point, actually.
I can see that.
Grace lacked emotional intelligence.
So I'm gonna
go ahead,
Grace
Mom.
is which character? Grace is the mom.
Hold on, I'm going. Man, I'm looking at all this madness right
Grace
now.
is being very silly right now.
The what is? I'm so sorry.
Grace was the woman of size.
Oh yeah, well he definitely manipulated her because of that pain, right?
Yeah.
So that was a lot of trauma. She still wasn't over it. Thus why they weren't together. Her and Smokes or somebody, right?
Right.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, we're
Grace
talking about the wrong
was
person. I'm so sorry.
too. She was married to both. That's right. And her
that's right. She wanted to get back to her daughter. It's like, hey, he will get back to our daughter. Da, da, da. Yeah, she was a little weak there, that's for sure.
She was a mom.
Yeah, she was a mom. I mean, I'll be quite honest.
She was letting her anxiety overtake her thinking about what was going on.
Yeah, the logic left the room, that's for sure. But who as a parent whose logic won't leave the room if it came to their
what I'm saying. That's
the one Asian daughter in the film. I mean, let's be honest. But you're absolutely right, Peter. That was what really was the catalyst to a lot of bad things starting to happen, and then the chain effect, and half the people getting bitten and all this other jazz. But that's the vampire's job. He's always been a manipulator. He's a seducer, right?
It's really interesting. Like that goes along with the old cat. Well, it still is pretty much the way that Christians would think about Satan. Satan doesn't come up and scare you. Satan is beautiful. Satan was the most beautiful angel in heaven. And so there's more about that. We'll talk Christianity later. But in order to get humankind to do what his will, he talks sweet to them. He doesn't scare you. And so that's very fascinating to me of that as well. You know, they weren't scary at all, except when they got the teeth on you. That was pretty scary.
Yeah. That's actually very interesting that you say that. It's like as soon as they let the guard down, that's where things got scary. When he I think to what Peter said, when they start emotionally manipulating you, that's where it starts to lose their power,
Yeah.
right? Music stopped playing, something happened, everything got
Right.
dead silent. The rhythm stopped, everything stopped, and emotion started to ensue, and emotion started to drive people's actions versus logic, right? And again, without when the music stopped, chaos happened. So that loss of music, the loss of power, boom, all this started to occur.
That's a great point that you're saying about the music being kind of it was a protector. The music was a protector, and the angels in heaven sing, and there's other places too. Traditionally, in faith traditions and in traditions of people of color, where music is a protective. We sing songs. African midwives sing songs while babies are being born. And the songs are to protect the baby and to guide the baby to come out into this life and be with us. So there's always tremendous power. And even in a Christian church service, music plays a very big role. In Baptist church, music is another very big piece of it. You don't have a quiet Baptist church service. It doesn't happen, right? Because they're calling in that what's in the words is protection and reminders and guidance.
Very true. And Knox kind of talks about this duality with the one twin mix business with pleasure.
Yeah,
And
well,
but that's what the pastor father warned the son at the very beginning. Put down that music. He said, but I want to, get the pleasure. He wanted to feel the what do you call it? The pleasures of life outside this little small town, outside of the church. I don't want to be the church's son anymore. And he went to go seek that other side, that duality. And music was that vehicle for him. And look where it got him. So
well,
it's
as good as the music is, like when you're escaping something that's not good. Do you know what I'm saying? If you're running to Jesus because you're trying to escape life, that's not going to help you.
But look what Knox says. Every man. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. If you're running to the juke joint to escape your horrible life, right in that time period, people of color's lives were pretty darn miserable. They had their happiness together with each other. And church on Sunday plays a big part on that, where they're happy together. So, but either way, they're running from something. And so they have no peace and they have no grounded center to really protect them from quote unquote evil.
Well, that's the driving force of this, I think, music in this film, was that it can be good and evil, right? A form of escape for the lead character to find a better life, the brothers to rejuvenate their career after coming back from Chicago, or they can attract some vampires. So there you go. And he says, Knox says, even Mary wasn't supposed to be in there.
Yeah.
And then BT says, cornbread trying to get back in the jute joint needs to be studied. Yeah, that was. Talk about manipulation, being kind to one another. Yeah. But you can tell something was seriously off when he came back and he was like, where you been? He's like, oh, just over. He said, there was always those words like, just invite me in and I'll come back in. It was like, oh, no, brother.
Yeah, I suspected him immediately when that came out of his mouth.
Yeah, that was,
no, never heard that before.
Just invite me in. I said, I've seen enough vampire films where you do not invite them in. Anyway,
not invite them in. Exactly.
Knox says, no, I mean, as a businessman, he mixed the business with,
that's a good point there. That's a very good point.
He mixed the business with the pleasure. Yeah, by getting back with the lady friend too, right? Isn't that what?
Yeah, it says an old rule that you don't blip where you eat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was doing an awful lot of that. So not
wise. But they had a lot of healing that wasn't done healed, right? Like when he went back and met and talked to her, all of a sudden they had a little intercourse in her little voodoo situation, her little voodoo spot, and clearly they still have feelings, but weren't done, like, what do you call it? They weren't done processing the pain.
No,
and they didn't brought that into the mix.
Yeah.
Right.
They were
Well, everybody who's watching right now, I do want to say how much I appreciate you all checking us out on the second episode of Mom and Movies. Now, we're going to be continuing to give you our own opinions, the most unprofessionally professional opinions on YouTube here on Day One Films. Today, it's all about Sinners, as you can tell. Obviously, feel free to join the live chat. Let us know. But we are about our time, Mom.
Let me ask something really quick. I know we're
Sure.
at the time.
Hold on.
If anybody who joined us today, I really loved to know it is not voodoo. Voodoo is a very different thing. So everybody who joined us today, please email our message to my son, Robert, and he's going to give his email in a second. If you would like
Description section, everybody.
Well, if you're here, you can do too. You want us to see and talk about a movie, just put it in the chat or email us, and we'll be happy to take a look at it and talk about it for you.
Yes, you can easily email us, right? Any films you feel like we should check out that's out right now on major streaming platforms and or in the films okay, here we go. I'm going to put it up for you guys. 123 .net. Boom, bada, bang, bam. Right there. Info at dayonefilms.net. Go ahead, email us there. We'd love to hear what you think we should talk about. And of course, we always welcome your comments and feedback. All right. Hold on. We got a last comment here. Peter says, I am still yet to recover from the Delta Slim. Delroy, yeah. Talking about the lynching of his father at the train. Yeah, that was deep. I mean, you could see why he was an alcoholic. The pain he was trying to mask, right? I left the cinema for 5 minutes to put myself together. Wow, that was deep. That's a very good point.
Very deep.
Shout out to him because he's a one of those greats that doesn't get his flowers. Like
I was remembering him from Malcolm X.
Oh, I was just thinking about him in Five Bloods, Five Brothers with Spike Lee. You know, with I'm sorry.
Yeah. Another
and
great
he started
movie.
to get dementia in that one. Get dementia. I was like, yo, yeah, that was awesome. Delroy Alonso was phenomenal. Yes, he definitely he was awesome.
Are there a couple more comments before we go?
Yeah, we're getting some comments, Ma. So let's just get some of these. They blessed us. We gotta bless them. Delta Slim better get a supporting acting role nom or we protest. Yeah, he was pretty awesome. I believed that character. Just the way he played it. I could feel the decades of pain, the consistency of carrying the burden of his life on his shoulders. You could tell the way he just looked so, I don't want to say weather beaten or like beat down. The weight of his existence, you see it on his face, in his voice, and the way he performed. And the cop was like, yo, boy, you don't know how to play this. You got to live a life half as wretched as mine to understand the blues. And I just love that. Yeah, that was a great character. Sad, but you understood that if you put it in context to the time period, you're like, how many more others maybe couldn't play as good as him, but felt that pain at that time?
Yeah. I mean, that is a big part of the blues.
Yeah, he was fearless and honest, 100%. 100%. Hold on. Okay, so with all that said, everybody, I do want to Mom, I'm gonna we gotta close this puppy out and just hang in there. I'm gonna close this out, okay? Thank you, Mom.
Goodbye, everyone.
First and foremost, everybody, let's give my mom a big round of applause. Come on now. Okay, I'm gonna give you a Final Fantasy win, Mom. How about that? All right, Mom, hold on. All right, everybody. So as we give my mom a a goodbye for this episode of a Mom in Movies, we hope you enjoyed our conversations, our banter, our opinions. Again, this is the most professionally unprofessional critiques you're going to get here on this side of YouTube. We are going to be looking at some films and coming back to all of you. So make sure you subscribe to this channel, Day One Films. Hit that like button, all that other good stuff. And thank you all. Thank you, Knox, for tuning in. And thank you, BT. Thank you, Peterman. Thank you all for tuning in for another episode of Mama Movies. So until next time, folks, keep watching those films. And when I mean watching, go to the movie theaters. Go to the movie theaters. And I'll say it one more time. Go to the movie theaters. Okay, the actors and everybody, they get paid more when you do that, all right? Anywho, until next time, have a good one.